Hello and welcome to Juggernaut Bolt Action. I'm your host Topher and this is our very first episode. Editing is difficult, I don't have many brain cells, so this is going to be a bit rough until I get a bit better at it. But please give us the benefit, give me at least 6 minutes, that's all I'm asking for, 6 minutes to get you hooked before you switch over to something better. As this is our first episode, I thought before we jump in with all of the co-hosts and start talking a load of rubbish, I'll give you a preamble to see what we're up to. So, this is a podcast dedicated to my favourite game, Bolt Action, which is owned and run by Warlord Games. We're called Juggernaut Bolt Action, as we, the hosts, are from the Leicester Juggernauts Wargaming Club. And if you can't tell from my accent, we're from the heart of England. So if you go to many events near us, you probably might have seen us, probably played with us, might even have an opinion on us. So we play a lot of Bolt Action and attend a lot of tournaments and events. So naturally, due to the sort of gamers we are as tabletop wargamers, this podcast will be more about the competitive side of the game. So we'll be talking about lists, tactics, events, book reviews, how to get the most out of your game. That's not to say we won't be talking about other aspects, we'll still be talking about hobby and history, as we are keen hobbyists. However, gaming as a whole, being gamers, is what we as hosts are good at, so that's what our focus will be. And hopefully provide something different to what's come before. There are a fair few Bolt Action podcasts around of various shapes and sizes. The vast majority are more historically inclined. So to do something different, we're going to be much more gamey focused, which will suit some people, which is great. It won't suit other people, which is also great. Everyone's into their own thing, but from our stance, that's definitely what we're going to be into. So as this will be focused on competitive side of the game, that's not to say we expunge all other aspects, but that's just what we do. This will be not safe for work. This is my first and final warning, because editing is hard. I do swear a lot. In front of my kids, I'm a very bad person. You just have to judge me for that. But editing is hard, and restraining our passions as we talk a load of rubbish. It's not going to be the easiest thing, so I'm just going to say outright now. I will swear. I don't mean to offend. It is who we are. So it is what it is. Hopefully you'll find it enjoyable, entertaining. You might learn something. We'll appreciate some feedback. As I say, this is our first run. I've got an awful lot to learn, so it'll be very appreciated. Feel free to say good things and bad things. I've got pretty thick skin, so I can take it. It should be fine. That being said, on with the show. Now we're officially started. So are we all ready? Feeling good?
All that voice you're going to have.
Yes.
There's going to be an awful lot of shit I'm going to have to cut out of this. I was going to say even me just saying shit there, except I've already warned people this is definitely not safe for work. So there shouldn't be an issue. Right.
Shit, fuck, piss, bastard, fuck. There you go.
Have you got that in your system?
Yeah.
Do you have a beat that we can put over all Pete's swear words?
Shall I just use the word
No,
Pete?
not a beat.
So every time he sweets, it just says Pete.
Yeah.
Just a really girly flower.
So we're already sidetracked. First segment is officially Bolt Action Anonymous. So just like Alcohol Anonymous, you get a bit addicted, you need to go to a support group, help yourself out, introduce yourself. So obviously here, I feel this is a good first segment for us because we don't quite know her yet. So you're a new listener. Hi, we're the Juggernauts. Pete's a bit of a bellend, we've already learnt that. Let's see what else we can learn. Do you want to go first then, Dan?
Yeah, go
In
for
this
it.
case, this is Dan, Mr. See You Next Tuesday himself.
Thanks very much. I'm Dan. I've been gaming now for 15-ish years, maybe a little bit more. I am primarily a gamer rather than a collector and painter, although I do set out to paint all my models beautifully every time, and then because Toph whinges that there's not enough progress quick enough, I end up just rushing it all and it looks like crap.
I'll have you know, I hold the highest standards of people painting their stuff, but I don't care about quality, you just need to paint it. You sir, rush at the end. That's your own issue. I do not force that upon you.
Yeah, but it's done then, isn't it?
Well, at least you get stuff done. I mean, Sheffield here paints maybe one model a year, so we're doing better than that.
Oh no, I'm not the worst by any means. So my first and most prominent love is obviously Warhammer Fantasy. That's how I got into the whole thing in the start.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, evolved into 40k. Well, I say evolved, kind of got into it because everyone else was doing it rather than fantasy, and that was a load of crap. And now Toph managed to get us all into bolt action a couple of years ago, and it is probably the best game system out there that I've ever played, apart from fantasy, obviously. So yeah, we're just kind of addicted to it now, and a lot of the prep recently for everyone has been going to the GT, obviously. So
that spoiler alert, that's next segment coming up when we will talk about what rubbish we've been planning for the GT coming up. So
I didn't say what I was taking.
Well,
you know,
we got time. We got time. So
I haven't. I'm still painting it as we speak.
Sheffield and Pete, you're being very quiet.
I was just being polite.
Likewise.
Well, does one of you want?
After you.
Well, that was all right. My name's Pete. I've been gaming for God knows how long. Tiny, super tiny. But first thing I fell in love with was 40k. Love collecting that stuff, but one-sided. Played a lot of fantasy. Got to love me some undead. Got into bolt action same time as Toph got most of the. And well, I have an obsession with plastic that I.
The plastic crack is harsh.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the plastic that you blow up and
Well,
it was a woman figure.
Plastic explosive addiction.
Plastic dolls.
He's been through 4 houses in as many months. He just can't get it up.
Check timestamp. Can't be more than 5 minutes before Dan mentions blow up dolls.
Now, it gets so bad as I'm sat here right now with probably at least gone through two boxes of Japanese inventory, so that's at least 60 dudes, and I'm looking at one in cellophane wrapping, going, "Ooh, what do I make that into?" So, primary army is Japanese. I've got some instead. I paint one model of, but it is a fully painted army.
It's a very beautiful. Spoiler alert: I sold him that army. Just a little humble brag right there. Speaking of humble brags, the man so tiresome we named him after a city in Yorkshire, Sheffield.
Yes, that would be me. Thanks for that setup. I've been playing fantasy and games like it for about 21 years. I think I got my first miniatures when I was about 8 or 9. That was my first love. I played 40k because other people did. I never really enjoyed 40k quite as much as I enjoyed fantasy, and I was very late to the bolt action party, which is why I'm here. So I think the other guys here, Pete, Toph, and Dan, all started playing through the beta rules. I think they knew somebody who'd got hold of them, and they were talking about this game, and I had no interest in it. And then suddenly there were models on the table, and I was turned up for a gaming club, and they were all there. And I thought, oh, these look interesting. Could paint those pretty quickly. That hasn't happened. But actually, spinning. I think it was after a few months that they'd all been playing bolt action, they adapted some bolt action rules into 40k, and they played 40k bolt action with a random draw, and I thought that worked really well and was impressed by it, and they guilt tripped me into playing bolt action, and I really enjoy it. I think I don't know, it's not my favorite game, but I like it. It's a different tactical challenge, and unlike fantasy and 40k, I'm reasonably good at it competitively if I try. That's me.
I was going to say, I'm gonna have to edit in some more silence there after you saying that you're good at it. I feel that the pause wasn't long enough.
Well, I'm passable. I like to think I'm passable.
That's fine. So
just let him believe what he wants to believe, and we'll correct him later.
Well, I mean, you listeners, if you come to a tournament we attend, I please have a game with Sheffield and prove him wrong on our behalf.
I'll prove him wrong really hard.
Yeah, because I feel
I'm prepared.
A target very wide that we can all take advantage of there.
But I'm prepared to sit and take this from from Dan and Toph. But there are only 2 tournaments I've been to that Pete's also been to, and I've outperformed him twice, so he doesn't get to throw stones.
But haven't you only ever been to?
It's irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Before this gets gets below the belt, so I am Topher. Started with 40k as per the normal. Advanced through Games Workshop. Did fantasy. Did 40k. Fantasy died. It still hurts. 40k.
We all feel that loss.
Yeah, 40k is dead to me. Effectively, I played it for a good 18 years, but fundamentally just. Well, I don't need to tell you guys how it goes, but even the revitalization has been a successful week, including me actually, because I love the fluff and the game just doesn't hold. But about 5 years ago, I discovered this amazing game, Bolt Action, and I'll tell you what, when I first played it, I was awful at it. I was sucking left, right, and centre, but then I kept at it, and what I did is I just recruited more friends to play it until they all sucked, and then I wasn't the worst one. And that's officially how to get good at wargaming, is just get your worst friends who are bad at wargames to play with you, and then you'll be fine.
Or that's how you make you feel good about yourself, is play people that are worse so you look really good.
Yeah, I mean that's how it goes. That's why you beat 4-year-olds at Monopoly and steal Mayfair off them. It's how it works. It's a circle of life. So yeah, that is us, and that is Bolt Action Anonymous. So before we go to the next segment, anything else to add?
I was just going to say to you guys, what is the one thing that got you into Bolt Action more than anything else? Because for me, having played Fantasy and 40k, I think the difference between those type of games and the actual game system for Bolt Action, for the random drawing of the dice, the way you compose your armies and everything is the same. That's what got me into this. What about you?
For me, it's mainly spectacle. So I grew up playing Call of Duty. I grew up watching Saving Private Ryan, watching World War II in colour, all of that rubbish. So when I heard that someone's basically made that World War II setting, but 40k, 1940k, let's say it, I was on board straight away. Done. Someone had tried to get me to Flames of War beforehand, and that just didn't cut it for me. I didn't like the scale. But Bolt Action, I was like, oh, this could work. And after reading through the rule book, I think I was about page 20, where I was like, right, I was already on Warlord site, buying my first army box at that point. So I was hooked first straight away. Just the whole, there's nothing better than getting all your army on the table. Beautiful army, beautiful terrain. Your opponent's not bad looking either. Take him out for a drink either afterwards. Once all of that is in place, I don't think you can get a better wargaming experience personally.
I don't disagree, but it's different for me. I'm not bothered by the spectacle of Bolt Action. What got me into it was just the simplicity of it. I think I'd spent 5, 6, 7 years basically playing exclusively fantasy. It was the game I knew. I'd committed the entire rule book, all the errata, most of the army books to memory. I can still do most of the stats now. And then I watched people play this game, Bolt Action, and the rules were obvious. Everything's the same broadly, but within that sameness, it means the flexibility of choice is much greater. So one unit can operate in 4 or 5 different ways, which is just really useful. And so it just changes the scope of how you play. I wouldn't say it's necessarily more tactically challenging or less challenging. I think it's sufficiently different that it doesn't feel like I'm playing another game. And I think that's one of the issues I have with a lot of the Games Workshop games now, is it feels like, even if I'm playing 40k, or if I'm playing Age of Sigmar, or if I'm playing any large-scale combat game, I feel like I'm playing more or less the same game. And Bolt Action doesn't feel like that. And I think that's the appeal for me. That's why I enjoy it. It's like if you played nothing but Monopoly, and then suddenly someone let you play Munchkin, it's just completely different.
I mean, you're still fucking each other over, both games. And both games with the correct application of players can last for 15 hours.
So, our first taste of it, Topher was playing with. He was sat there losing repeatedly. It was quite funny. I'm going to mention Topher losing a lot right now.
It does happen.
Do it a lot anymore. So I watched it a lot, and then I was there like, well, what the hell is this game about? Watched how the game went. Well, this looks pretty simple. A lot different. I quite like this. And then I had every war gamer has it that, oh, how much is this? You looked at and then looked at the prices and went, well, I'm in. Okay, I'm buying that, and that, and that was it. I love the spectacle. One of my favourite Call of Duty games was World at War. So I went, well, I want to be that crazy Japanese man that always made me jump a little. Jumped out of the bushes going banzai. So it was a good bit of fun.
I must say the actual cost of getting into Bolt Action. If you've only ever played Games Workshop games, you do not understand the dive of price. You can buy a single box for £18, and you are good to go. You can build that list. You can go to a tournament and play with it. You might not necessarily win, but you're good to go. You're playing a game.
Think about it this way: you're getting an army for the cost of a kill team.
If two of your friends, or you and a friend, both buy that £18 box set each, or the £24 boxes for the 30 troops, that's 2 500-point lists. Done.
Simple. And when you take into the fact that, you know, the Bolt Action community is one of the best communities I've ever been a part of, and if you go to an event, everyone's you're right there, Chef.
just making a point.
Okay, we'll come back to that. But generally, it's one of the best communities ever. And if you go to an event, you know, the price support's through the roof. Just turning up can get you a tank. So it's very welcoming to new players, I feel. And that's one of the strongest parts, you know. It's not like, oh, wow, where's your £400 worth of buy-in? Oh, no. You can either buy a pint or start Bolt Action.
Yeah, I think if I can just add, Oh, go on. I was going to say that actually one of the appeals for me, as already mentioned, I'm a ridiculously slow painter. One of the appeals of bolt action is that actually I spent a lot of time overthinking it and overcomplicating the things that I was painting. But actually, you don't need to be a good painter to make an army look really good in bolt action. It's much simpler to achieve a coherent color scheme. So yeah, there's no skill wall for making the models look good. And because they're so cheap, you don't feel like you're wasting your money by doing a slightly subpar job of them.
It's a sign of a good game where it's so cheap, and yet I will still spend £200 on a full metal British army from Artisan because I'm a crazy man, and that's just this game makes me do. So if that doesn't tell you, listener, that we really love what we're on about, nothing else to tell you really. So that's us.
I suppose it makes it a lot easier to bear if you're winning another 2 armies from tournaments whenever you go to them, like we have all done.
Well, the final point is I've not failed to get a single person to play bolt action. Every single person I've genuinely gone, come play this game with me. They've all had a game and gone, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to get into. And as I say, the prize support is so good, is you can win a box set of infantry and just go, there you go, mate, infantry. And suddenly they go, 3 box of infantry. What have I got to lose? And you've got a new player there and then. It's like AIDS. I think it's like AIDS.
Well,
It's like fun AIDS. It's bolt action AIDS. That's what the
It's
A
like a
stands
rash,
for.
it just
It's
doesn't go away.
actually bolt AIDS. They had legal reasons had to change to action, but it is addictive and it is my favourite game.
And for legal reasons, we have to say, please don't spread AIDS instead of bolt action.
Yes. Trademark bolt action AIDS. And on that on that note, I think we've entered the segment. Right, so this is section number 2, and we've got a philosophical question for our main part. So if there's any Aristotles out, is Aristotle, is he a philosopher or is he a mechanic man? Is he out there? Yeah, okay. My intelligence is waning.
No.
So philosophical question. So this is a bit of a loaded question if you've worked out who we are as people and as podcasters. However, the question for this episode is competitive gaming bad? So I know what you're already thinking as a listener. Screw you guys, of course you're a bunch of gamers. Well, I'm aware people have differing opinions. Ours is not necessarily the right one. So let's hash it out and once and for all resolve, is competitive gaming bad? Now, so we don't all just jump off the same opinion, I'm going to be devil's advocate and come from the side of it's awful and we should stop it. And then these 3 munchkins can come back at me and tell me every way I'm wrong. And hopefully in between we'll find some sort of inner balance somewhere. And that's how I'm going to proceed. So I'm about to present my opening arguments unless someone has some comments on the beginning.
Munchkin, are you calling me short?
Yes, yeah, that is exactly you. It was you specifically, Pete. I was insulting you and hoping the other 2 just didn't notice. I hope that's okay.
It's not, but carry on.
So, why is competitive gaming bad? Well, fundamentally, playing to win and focusing on winning as your priority as to why you're gaming is not what these games are designed for. These games are designed specifically in mind for you and your opponent to have a good time. And for you to go out there and just think, I'm going to win regardless of it, you're immediately taking the fun out. You're focusing on the wrong thing. You're playing a game in a way it was not designed to be gained. So the worst of this obviously comes out in competitive tournaments when everyone's gone because there's a prize and that's it. Everyone's eyes are on the prize. The dollar signs turn up in the eyes and that's it. So fundamentally, it brings out the worst in people. People forget why they are there. We've all been to tournaments where you've seen people storm out because a TO's made a judgment calling, or people have cheated. People have been flipping dice and not declaring what they're rolling. It's more into the winning than the fun. And fundamentally, as I said, that is not what wargaming is about. Specifically about bolt action. Once you get into the competitive mindset, history and context goes out of the window. Who cares about building a list with a historical mind? Who cares about building a specific platoon or playing what was actually there when you can just win? Why bother thinking about the history when, you know what, Gurkhas and Nebelwerfers and land mattresses, yeah, let's just have them, chuck them all in the same list. Why not? If it makes you win, who cares, you know? And it's this sort of attitude that potentially is putting people off coming to events and putting people off joining us as a community. Because if you're a new player, if you've got your little 500 point list your mate's given you and you're ready to go and you go to a tournament and you get smashed in your face, people laugh at you, look at your list and go, what are you doing? You joke. You go and you play people who cheat in front of you and then go off and win, and everyone gives them a prize, and you think, but that guy cheated. Why are we into that? So overall, wouldn't it be better for us to remove this competitive aspect? Wouldn't it be better just to say, you know what, no winners, no losers, let's just roll dice and have fun and make some fun stories? Because fundamentally, we all know this game isn't balanced anyway. When a Gurkha costs 14 points and a standard veteran gives 13, who cares? In a world with flamethrowers, who cares? So why would you even try to work out who's best when none of the systems and support around this game are even there? So that's my opening argument, and I'd like you guys to prove me wrong.
I mean, I'll step in if you want here.
Go for it.
I think what you've got to do is, especially from our gaming club point of view, is we always break it down into two sets of competitive play, don't we? So we have the grand tournaments and the very high prestigious tournaments where we go and we think, right, we are going to win this. We're going to take this as a team. So things like the Warlord GT, things like Cambridge Too Far, which is obviously I think it's probably the biggest in the UK at the minute.
Biggest in the world.
Biggest in the world.
There's one in America that's trying to take it, but I know the organizer of Cambridge is it's competitive in his own way. It's more about size of tournament than the game itself. But there we go.
Yeah. So I mean, when you've got a tournament like that with such clout to it, if you will, for when you win it, or if you place really well, or your team does really well, I think it has a very different mindset to if you're going down your friendly local game store. There's 10 people there overall, and a couple of them are your mates, and a couple of them you already know from somewhere else. And it's just that's more of a fun day out, I think. So when we go to the big tournaments, we try and practice and take horrible lists and try and get as good a list as possible. But I think when we're going to those friendly local game stores, or if we were to run a campaign day or something like that, obviously you've got to go with a different mindset. You go with a nicer list, a more toned down, historically themed list, and you go more for the fun rather than just being a total douchebag and win at all costs.
So my rebuttal to that is, how do you stop the competitive side leaking into the friendly side? So to give you an example, so we're all preparing for the Warlord GT at the minute. We're all in the garage gaming with pretty nasty filth lists, if I'm honest. We're not messing around here. We're aiming to win. If not all of our group are going to that tournament, though. Some of our local game guys can't get the day off work, or they can't. They've got family commitments, so they're not going. But then them having to come to our club every week are still having to play our cheese, our filth, our awfulness. So
but they know we're preparing for that tournament, though, don't they? When we're just normal gaming, it changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's more of an etiquette thing. If you're quite clear with the person you're playing, look, I'm practicing for this event. I want to specifically get better at this so I can place better at an event. You've got to let your opponent know first, so they can make their mind up whether they want to play that noise or they want to turn around to you and go, hang on, can we dial this down and have fun?
Sheffield, anything to add?
No, I basically agree with Pete. I mean, I don't want to go all social justice warrior, but basically comp gaming's about consent. That if you go to a tournament, you're consenting to go in with the intent of winning at potentially all costs. And that's the environment you're going into. So you go in, well, to use Topher's phrase, balls deep. And
how is that my phrase? I've not said it yet on this cast. I will admit that is my phrase. However, in context.
But the thing is, like, for me, I'm one of the flakes they're talking about who's not there every week. I'm not constantly playing. So I know that if I go to our Topher's garage this week and wanting to play bolt action, I'm going to be facing filth. And if I go knowing that, then it's going to affect the mindset I have when I go and play. If I go and I want to play a nice friendly game and I bring a historically accurate themed army and then they table me in turn 2, that's not their fault. It's mine. And I think people who go to tournaments, and if they're getting cross that they're being tabled, or they're getting cross that people are taking it seriously, then that's not the fault of the people who've turned up there with that mindset, because that's what everyone's agreed to. That's the group think. That's the mode of being for that tournament. And like, I'm not going to the GT this year because I can't get the time off work, but I probably wouldn't want to go anyway because I'm not good enough at that side of bolt action. Whereas when I've been to Cambridge Too Far, I quite like that. I did pretty well, but that's because it's slightly less intense. and that's deliberately communicated through their campaign pack. So I knew it was going to be less intense. I went, and I think, I mean, it helps that I'm not a moron and I actually read the campaign pack, which can't be said for quite a few people.
Nobody reads the rule pack. That's a lie. No one in the history of the world has ever read a rule pack, Sheffield. Let's not share our lies to our listeners, okay? Rules packs are for heathens. It's like the Bible. No one actually reads it.
You mean you don't print yours off and file them in a folder on your shelf with all of your rule books and codexes?
No, that's just you.
It's not even me. But no, that was a very long way of saying I agree with Pete.
So what would you say to say this is me? Okay, I've just started Bolt Action. I'm not really sure what's good or what's not. So I think I'm gonna follow history. I'm gonna go with what think looks about right. So I'm taking my Tiger. Tigers are cool. Well, Tigers had support of Waffen SS. They all had the best kits. So here we go. I've picked a date. I've read a rule book. I've read a history book. I've gone to a tournament, and then I've come up against an utter C next Tuesday. And he's barely spoken. He's just been mouthing off, giving dodgy, patronising rules discussions to the point where, you know what, I'm not into this.
It's not usual that you would play someone like me on a first round, though, because we're from the same gaming club. So.
Oh no. If you come up against one first round and you get tabled, don't be mad, because what you want to do is think, all right, I'll come up against them, take note, and think, where did they end up at the end of it? Because if they ended up in the top half of the table, top 3, top 10, whatever it was, you can go, all right, now I got spanked by a good player with all right, maybe slightly dirty list or tweaked list, as I'd prefer to call it. But at least that way you go, no, all right, now my goal is to, you can either choose your goal to get that good or stay historical. Or a lot of these tournaments have painting competitions, and I'll tell you what, we don't win many painting competitions, if at all, unless somebody does snow bases.
Snow bases. That's a pro tip, guys. Snow bases.
I'm going to disagree with you, both of you, because actually I think that if you're getting to the tournament on the day and then you're realising that that's what it's like, it's your own fault, because you should know before that. I think if I invited a friend to a tournament and it was like a proper comp tournament and they get absolutely tabled because I've invited them and they don't know what they're doing, or that they've come and not really realised it's going to be like that, despite all the warnings being there, it having competitive in the title of the event or things like this, then actually if you get absolutely hammered, stuff you. It's your fault. If it's a theme day, if you go to a theme day where it's encouraging you to be historically accurate, where there's still an element of competition, no one's expecting you to deliberately try and lose, but where you're restricting yourself on purpose, then that's slightly different. And that'll be known before you go. So if I went to one of our friends is organising a tournament early next year, it's a theme day. It's a narrative day where we're going to be taking themey lists, and we're imposing some restrictions on ourselves for the sake of a more interesting spectacle for the game. Now, if I go and I get absolutely steamrolled by a min-maxed power list, I'm going to be pretty annoyed. But I'm not going to be annoyed if I get beaten by a list because someone just played better than me. It's not the losing, it's the manner of losing, and that's determined by how the tone is set for the event.
And I think that's one good thing about this community as a whole. I think one of the better things about this community as a whole is there are so many people out there that want to play historically. You're not going to struggle to find a campaign day, like you say, Sheffield, or just avoid a competitive tournament. It's going to be so easy just to get a local tournament or a friendly campaign day somewhere, and you can avoid all those quote unquote power gamers,
So
I agree.
So where does the responsibility lie? So say, to give Sheffield's example, you've gone to a tournament which was advertised as a nice theme day, and some numpty comes along and hammers everyone because everyone else is taking anti-tank rifles and stuff, and some boy came with 15 Nebelwerfers. In terms of policing that, in terms of saying, seriously, this is not right, how do we as a community enforce that? Where does the responsibility lie? Because unfortunately, as per conversations on the Facebook groups and talking to people, sometimes things don't always match up. People with different outlooks go to these tournaments, and the mismatch does occur. So in terms of stepping forward, how would we go with that?
if I answer this one, and then I'll be quiet for a bit because I've talked more than Pete and Dan. It's just I think it depends on who's running the tournament. So actually, you'd hope that the person in the position of being a tournament organizer would have a pretty good grasp of the, I'm going to use the buzzword meta, have a pretty good grasp of the meta and what would work. And if they've got a view for doing a theme day, then usually it's not quite so many people. You're usually talking 20 to 30 people. And it means that they can individually vet the lists and go, actually, mate, do you want to tone this down? Or say to somebody else, actually, mate, you might want to turn this up a bit. And I think that it's the role of a TO in a small tournament setting, a sort of a narrative tournament setting, to be directing that. Whereas gloves are off in other events, and you don't need to police that. If it's legitimate, according to the rules, doesn't matter how stupid, game's on.
See, I'm going to slightly disagree with the vetting of the list at a themed event. A themed event will quite happily say in its event pack, this is a themed day. If somebody turns up with a tweaked out list that's just going to roll through everything else because it's there purely to win, then that's on them. It's a theme day. You know it's a theme day. Read the pack. You know, if you're coming up to a tournament, you know, something that labels itself as a tournament, actually says to it, look, you're there. Here's some. You know, you're there to win. You're not there just to win. You're there to have fun and to win. You know, because you're not just going to throw games away, or everybody tries to win as it goes. That's fine. You can go at it on those. But theme days, it's on the people going to make sure their lists aren't stupidly tweaked up to the point. You know, you mentioned anti-tank rifle. You know, everybody having an anti-tank rifle everywhere else, and somebody having 3 Panzerwerfers. It's just. You know, it's on the player that brought the 3 Panzerwerfers there to go, well, where's that in the theme? Where's your theme? What you're doing with this? Is this based on everything? I mean, if your theme includes that, then maybe the TO should have a look, go, all right, could you take one of those out to make it a little nicer?
Yeah, I don't think I was saying that the TO should be like the commissar of list building. But I think if you've got a good enough, like I would trust any one of you three to, if I was submitting a list for a theme day that any of you were running, to basically to be able to judge roughly off that list whether or not it's in fitting with the tone of the tournament you're running. And so I wouldn't expect you to come back and give me a blow by blow of this unit yes, this unit no. But like, I don't know. Perhaps I'm wrong. I think it's a bit of a grey area. I wouldn't be too dogmatic about it. But
any final points, Dan?
I agree with both of them, but for different reasons, really. I think the onus is on the TO to make sure that he has a good rules pack to stop the douchebag player turning up with a list that's going to beat everyone. So I think it's a little from column A, a little from column B. I think a good rules pack will mitigate most of the horrible lists, or a good theme set out will mitigate most of the horrible lists, but there is always going to be the 1 or 2 players that try and push the boundaries a little bit, and maybe they need to take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror and just think, is it really worth being that guy to go to a theme day and upset people when I'm sure that you could find another tournament on the same sort of weekend and just turn up to that and play like a knobhead there.
So I'm going to flip this round now. So we've had a good session of defending competitive play. So now let's flip it round. So is competitive gaming bad? Personally, I've said that's all the reasons as to how to mitigate the people who think it's bad. So what's so good about it? So why are we competitive gamers? Why do we as Juggernauts go, you know what, I'm going to go to this tournament, I'm going to win? What triggers us? What triggers us to come up with that mindset? Because the established default is probably just, I'm going to go and have fun. So for people to take it to that next step, what motivates them? Why are we the internet boogeyman of the sort of people to go to a tournament and potentially, however not meaning to, going and winning? I'm using my words here. Someone rescue me, Sheffield.
Okay. I don't really know. Is my answer, because twice now, 2 years in a row, I've been to Cambridge, and I've taken what on paper was universally agreed by everybody in our gaming group, not an especially good list. And both times I finished in the top quarter. That's not because I'm secretly a super gamer, but it's because actually a lot of things about what's powerful and what isn't, you don't know until the day. And actually, the first person I played last year, I absolutely steamrolled, and that was the game I enjoyed the least. But it's not because I'd gone in as a power gamer or they'd gone in as anything else. It was just actually just the lists just happened to be the case. It was sort of rock, paper, scissors. What's difficult for me is that the reason my list is effective, and the reason that actually what didn't feel especially good to us but was nonetheless really effective, was because the environment in which I'd been playing was one of, let's say, quite a high level. Don't want to sort of be too nice to you guys, but basically, if I play day in, day out, or week in, week out with people who are routinely winning GTs and major tournaments, as Toph and Pete and Dan quite often are, and I'm losing every week, or I'm losing more games than I'm winning, certainly, then I go to a place with people who aren't playing as much and aren't playing quite so comp. It makes me look like that, and it's quite a hard thing to balance. I think I probably haven't answered your question at all.
It's just interesting because out of all of us, you're probably the least competitive gamer. To be fair, I would say you match the persona of that person who just wants to turn up and just have fun. It's just you have the short or long straw, whichever way you want to look at it, of coming to play in our garage every week, and therefore learning the game at a higher level, say, than a normal person would.
So then I'll be specific, and I'll probably Dan and Pete will say something. I enjoy playing with you guys. I think that if I didn't, I wouldn't play, but I do. I enjoy that it's a tactical challenge. I prefer it when that tactical challenge is entirely on the tabletop, but there is an element of that tactical challenge is in the list building phase. It's nowhere near as bad as 40k, not a chance. But there is an element of tactical thought in the setting up of your list, and that's the major difference between us. But I enjoy it because it still gives me a challenge. I enjoy it more when I win. I'll say that, but I'm not salty about it if I lose, because I usually do. And it's just, the game for me exists as a test of skill and a test of patience. And so long as I'm feeling like, I think Topher will remember this more, and actually, to be honest, Dan as well. The games I have against Pete tend to be a little bit closer, but sometimes I've lost really badly to either Toph or Dan because I've made a stupid mistake. And the way I look back on my games against them is, have I made the same mistake more than once? And I think that's certainly, it was a steep learning curve. What are they called? The bamboo spear mine people that Pete has in his Japanese army.
Suicide AT guys.
Yeah, first game against them, didn't know what they did, had no idea, got absolutely slaughtered because I positioned my vehicles wrong. Complete disaster. When we were preparing for one of the major tournaments, we were playing a demolitions mission. I deployed really badly, put my objective that had to be destroyed over in a corner, and I think it was Toph probably, just destroyed it in turn 2 by outflanking onto it because I just didn't think about it. And these are sorts of things which actually, in a regular job, they wouldn't matter. They probably wouldn't pick up on that. But I'm being forced to think about all of the different positionings and where my models are in a way that actually I'll be really punished for the mistake, and it means I know the rules really well, and that's an enjoyable element of the game. So I don't know, I would be annoyed if I went to a theme day and played one of the lists that you're prepping for the GT, because I probably wouldn't have that much fun against it. But if I've gone to the GT with you and I play that list, yeah, fine, we've consented to that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, however, in terms of what's good about competitive sense, it's probably not the best sense, but very informative. To be fair, I reckon, Dan, you're out of everyone, I think you're probably the most competitively minded. So, from a what do you enjoy about it kind of aspect, what would you say? What gets you up in the morning at those 6 o'clock risers to get to the other end of the country to roll dice?
Well, first of all, I think there's something in a competition where you can prove yourself. I think there's something in being able to get up in the morning, get to a tournament and thinking, this is going to be it. I've practiced for this. We've played in the garage together. We've honed our lists into what they are now. We know they're good. We know how to play them. And now you're going to play other good people that have done the same sort of thing. And it comes down to who can be the better general, and being able to have that battle of wills and minds and being able to test each other and coming out on top. There's just I mean, it's going to sound stupid because it's little toy soldiers on a board, but it is an amazing feeling when you can get to that first place in a tournament. You can stand up in front of all those people and think, yeah, I've worked hard for this. I've put the hours into to get where I am. And that's what it is for me. It's being able to say, I've done the prep, I've done the work, and now it's paid off, and this is where it got me.
Personally, I definitely have to agree with you there. For the tournaments I've gone and win, that being able to say, you know what, I'm the best person in the room, it is and saying that on its own sounds kind of, you've gone to a tournament, you've won 3 games, good for you.
Yeah.
I rolled. But
when we went to Cambridge, our main objective for that was let's be the best team.
Yeah.
It was let's be the best team because we know that the prize for this is going to be a gaming map. We want to get ourselves on the map as a brilliant gaming club. And that's exactly what we did. We had 6 or 7 players there. And I think me and you, Toph, we took 2nd and 3rd in Allied Generals. And we finished well ahead of anyone else in terms of team performance.
The point people don't see, at least from my perspective, so feel free to call me out here, is people don't see the prep. People don't see the run-up. People don't see the amount of work you've gone into to build yourself up to the point where you can get to these tournaments and win. People only see the final bit where you've gone in and smashed face and, oh, look at him, he just went and brought a list off the internet, good for you. But if it was that easy, just buy a list off the internet and build it and win, wouldn't everyone do it? So that's what I see.
What isn't seen is the amount of games you have before, because sometimes we'll go into tournaments, and there's quite a few people around the tournament scene that you get to know, you get to say hello to, and they've maybe had in 6 months had 10 games, whereas in the same period, because we're gaming every week, maybe once or twice a week, we've got 20-30 games under our belt. And I find most of the difference between a more competitive group like ours and a less competitive group that are just playing every now and then is that we want to get the games in. We want to get the experience of getting tabled, of getting trashed, so we know what went wrong, where not to go and do things next. For me, I absolutely love going to tournaments because it means I don't have to just play the same guys over and over again. As much fun as it is, it gets a little repetitive at times because you can start twigging how your friends think on the battlefield. So you can start, mitigating what they're going to do, which makes the game really close and more like chess than actual bolt action. So going to a tournament for me is new people to play, more fun to be had. Sure, I want to win, and if I've got to have got to tweak my list up there to get that win, then that's fine. But if I go to a theme day, I'm there going, I'm just here to have fun. What is just fun for me, even if I'm getting tabled.
Where I do agree with you and Dan is about the team element. So even though I won 2 of my games at 2 out of 3 the both times I've been to the tournaments, it's not the enjoyment of winning those games that I remember. It's the team victory. So actually, I did feel kind of like the sort of the fist pump when we all won our gaming mat for the club. That was, as far as I was concerned, my objective when I went. I wanted to not suck, not bring the team down, to put in a good score. And I think I did all right. I didn't let the team down. We won the thing that we wanted. And yeah, I feel a little bit of sort of shared pride in a way. If this isn't too odd a thing to say, that there's a group effort that none of us would be in the positions we were in if it wasn't for the games and the advice and the testing against each other. So while Dan won on his own merit and Toph got a really high score on his own merit, I don't think they'd have been able to do that if it hadn't been for the people like myself and Luke and Ben and other people who aren't here, so I shouldn't name them.
They'll be hosts eventually, give it time.
Yeah, those people who contribute towards that. So yeah, Toph's victory is Toph's victory, but I had a part to play in that. And so we had a team victory, and also I feel a little bit of sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Pride.
Shared pride. Sort of, it's your win, but I have some pride in that win. If that doesn't make me sound like a complete tournament cuck.
And you can almost,
it really does.
You can almost have a little, you can ignore the tournament table for your own team and have like a little team table going on within that. So you think, oh, I've won 2 games, but so and so's won 2 games and they've done a little better on score. I really need to get more to get above them, and you're just thinking, I want to be better than my team. I want to be the best of my team.
I think, to go off topic a bit, and the last 40k tournament we went to, we all got smashed so awfully, and by the end of the second game, it was basically just a competition amongst ourselves. None of us were going to get anywhere near the top after that. So I think comparing yourself to the bigger picture isn't always best, because just within you and yourselves, you can have competition with yourself. Even you can say, last time I was at this tournament, I won 2 games. Next time I want to do better than I did last time, and reaching that goal and fulfilling that goal is in itself an enjoyable experience. So now that I think we've patted ourselves on the back a little bit too much, I'm feeling a little bit embarrassed. Just to summarise, I think overall there's more to competitive gaming than just being an asshole, basically, and I don't think that's the side people assume. People jump to conclusions. I always say that I'd prefer to lose against a good player than absolutely smash some baby seal, and I've always been that.
I think when you go to competitive play, though, if someone thinks they're the top dog and they think they're brilliant, and they do lose to a generally better player, or if they lose to a little bit of luck, they will blame it on something that is beyond their control, because if they do that, then they don't sound a crap general or a crap player. If they can blame it on, someone moved a tank an extra inch too far and he cheated a little bit and got a bonus that way, and that's what lost the game, they will do that rather than just saying, I made a mistake. Well, I'll learn for next time.
Unfortunately, it's far easier to blame dice than it is to blame your own generalship. My argument is always, if you've lost the game because that mortar got the 6 and hit your squad, well then you didn't play good enough, because you shouldn't have put yourself in a position where a single 6 could lose you the game. But that's going into deep meta, and I think that's saved for a better day. So overall,
well, as we always say, bolt action happens, doesn't it?
Bolt action does happen. You can going on fine, roll a double 6 foo bar, blow your own tank up, and you're screwed. And
it happens far too bloody often.
So yeah, hopefully we've thrown some good arguments back. As you can say, we are competitive gamers. We put our hands up, but you know what? I don't think we're bad people. We don't go out to ruin other people's fun. It's for ourselves.
And just as a last point on this, it's just, if you feel your opponent's going a little too hard, they're being maybe what you can consider rude across the table, just let them know. Most people don't know they're doing.
Absolutely.
Just be honest with them, going, hey, look, you're being a little much. Can we calm this down?
We've had to do that within our own group, where we're practicing, and one of us is getting a little bit, no name speaking, but some people are getting a little bit arsey. You know what? Pipe down.
Oh, it's normally me.
Well, when people don't realise they're doing it, that freaking food bar, fuck the world, man, I'm gonna go hang myself. Well, you know what? Calm down. It's just, when you point it out, people get quite embarrassed. Nobody goes to a tournament to go, you know what? I'm gonna ruin someone's day. I'm gonna be an arsehole. It doesn't happen. So, I think being a bit proactive about your own fun is the way to go forward. Whichever way you want to play, whether you're historical, whether you're competitive, do what is good for you. And I think that's the way forward.
The only thing we've not mentioned, just want to put at the end, is that actually the thing that I think annoys all of us equally, even though I'll hold my hands up, I'm the least comp player here. The other 3 are much better than me. But actually the thing that annoys me just as much as it annoys them is when people say, no, this is the way you've got to play the game. And actually, it annoys me as much as anyone else when people are saying, actually, you've got to play bolt action the way that I want to play bolt action. And you see this occasionally in the community, which is otherwise very good. That don't let people pigeonhole you into playing it the way that they play it. Oh, you are playing a different way than me, thus your way is wrong.
True.
That gets into some
don't listen.
Social issues.
Well, it's just...
And that's not just in the community. That's worldwide deep social issues.
Well, true.
So before we get even more philosophical. Can you look? I've been to a kids' party today, right? I've had cake shoved in my ears. I've been having to clean poo up. Leave me alone. It's fine. Anyway, next segment.
Yeah.
This segment, I like this name, is Bring Out Your Filth. Bring out your filth. Bring out your filth. So, what we're going to talk about is our own personal prep for Warlord GT, which, as of today, is 2 weeks. Oh, God. So, for us, as I say, as we're tournament gamers, I think the GT is probably the highlight of our calendar. I mean, it's the Big Daddy. It's the kickoff of the tournament season, which kind of runs from November to May, where all the big tournaments are. Because summer's been a bit quiet for us, so we're ready to get back in with a swing of things. For me personally, I wasn't necessarily going to be able to go this time because I've just had another child on the way. But luckily, they came really early, so I've had tons of time to get some brownie points. So I'm going to be there with a vengeance. So for the past few weeks, we've been building up. We've been practicing with Liv, talking a lot of shop. We've been gluing models together furiously. So I think for this section, we're just going to talk about what our plans are and what we're taking, what practice we've done, what we hope to achieve, and see how we go. Now, Sheffield, fortunately, it's not coming, so you're going to be the outside looking in. Are you prepared for that task?
Yes.
To comment and look down on people and patronise people, are you sure you're going to be able to do that?
Shut up.
That's his life, isn't it?
Right, so let's go first. Right, I'm going to roll a D3. Pete's 1, I'm 2, Dan's 3, I rolled a 2, it's me. So to anyone who knows me personally, I mean, if you go to events yourself, you've probably met me. I won the GT last year, which I'm very proud of. A little bit embarrassingly so, it's fine. Judge me as much as you want. And I've got that trophy on my shelf, and it's very pretty. I like looking at it. So
Screw you.
Especially as I didn't know I was going to be able to go to this one. Now that I'm actually in the run-up, I am raring to go. I want to win this because, hand on heart, I want to defend my title. You know, I like being able to say I'm one of the best players. So it is what it is. I'm unashamed. It is who I am. So going with that, that's what I've. So last year, I took my Soviets, and the list got a bit of a bit of worldwide reputation, let's say, as the internet did not like it's 21 dice, it's 4 snipers, and it's 2 heavy howitzers. Which, yeah, it is. You know what? It is a filth list, but that's not the sort of list you'd take down the local friendly gamer store to play with your mate. That's the list you take to a GT with the specific idea of winning. So I did have right at the start had a play with a lot of different lists. I've got a lot of different armies. I've got Germans, I've got Brits, I've got Soviets, I've got so many different armies. I tried to play around and say what Western Desert books come out, lots of new toys and gizmos in there. But fundamentally, every single list I built came back to the same thing, and that is that it just wasn't as good or as effective as what I can do with the Soviet book. Because as many of you agree, as I know my co-hosts agree, is the Soviet book is probably the best book there is. In terms of options, whatever you want to do, you can do it. If you want loads of dog mines, you want veteran dudes, inexperienced dudes, loads of SMGs, loads of rifles, the Soviets can do it. So I went back to square one, and I looked, and I've redone. So I feel like I'm waffling a bit. Does anyone else want to interject? Give me a chance to breathe.
Well, what are the biggest changes from last year?
So looking at my list, what I've done is I looked hard at what worked and what didn't. And 4 snipers is definitely a bit overkill, so that's been dropped to 3. The howitzers are staying, so all I've really done is tweaked. It's the same standard theme. You've got a lot of inexperienced infantry. You've got the 2 SMG squads to back them up. You've got the 2 heavy howitzers. They do not need to hit to win me the game. It's a pure psychological weapon to force my opponent to do things they don't want to do.
So you're free. Oh. No, I was going to say, so your free and experienced squad is what selectors are you using?
Stalingrad. Feel free to kill me now.
So just to be clear, seeing as we're talking about cheese, what would you say in response to people who will comment that you are taking that selector, a historical selector, purely to get the benefits of duplicate team weapons and to get the benefit of Fnatic on your free squad?
You know what?
Can I jump in here? So, in the rules pack, the Warlord team have actually stated, where possible, please try and do a theatre selector and try and choose a year, try and choose a front that you want to be attacking on. For instance, choose the Eastern Front, choose Russians, choose the defense of Stalingrad. And this is a themed list. This is a sort of list where the knobhead that takes it to a campaign day that wants to just win would take this sort of list, but it is themed. Just for the record.
It is unfortunately very themed. Every unit I have taken was at Stalingrad at the same time and at the specific date. So unfortunately, to anyone who wants to say I'm not playing historically, I am in a very specific way. But to go back to Sheffield's point, you know what? I have taken that selector because it's very good. Because why wouldn't you? You go into a tournament to try and win. Why wouldn't you? My main rebuttal to that is, you know what? I think everyone should have. I think a lot of theatre selectors don't do anything for the player. A lot of theatre selectors will just say, take this tank, take that tank, you're not allowed that. And you know what? Why would you ever take that over the... So my personal opinion is players should have reinforced selectors which would give you more than a reinforced selector normally would with specific restrictions. And therefore, it changes how you'd build a list. So when I went from my Russians to my British... So flicking through the British book, you know what? Their selectors are garbage. There is no fun little rules. There's nothing which says, oh, if you have a full list of paratroopers, you get the stubborn rule on all your teams. Nothing like that. So, anything like the Stalingrad selector, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Now,
so then, go on.
So I was just about to say, so although it's powerful, I mean, it doesn't do that much more than it let you to do. Anything I've done with the Stalingrad selector, I could do without the Stalingrad selector. It just makes it a little bit more streamlined, let's say.
Yeah, so then what is it that makes your list particularly effective then? If it's not something unique to that list, what is it that's going to make that list so nasty?
So let's go back to square one. So my full list is two officers, minimum inexperienced second lieutenant officers, the bare bones, and a commissar. I have the free squad of the Soviet variety, so that's got all my special... That's the one where you can put all the free special rules on. So I've given it the free upgrades of tank grenades, I've given it the flag, and because it's Stalingrad, I've then taken 2 guard squads with all the SMGs, 2 7-man squads with all the SMGs. I've taken 2 Strafbat squads, so these, for the uninitiated, are Soviet war criminals, penal battalions. So basically, Stalin just said, get these guys to the front, make cannon fodder, take up the machine gun fire. So in bolt action terms, they're inexperienced dudes with the shirker rule, give them are doubled, so 2 pins suddenly counts as 4. And only 5 of them actually have rifles. The rest are all unarmed. So for a squad of 12, they are, let me do my maths right, 27 points. So I've got 2 of those squads. So that's all my infantry done. And then going on to teams, I have 3 snipers, I have 2 howitzers with spotters, I have 2 horse tows for said howitzers to get. I have a jeep, just a random jeep for objective missions, and then finally the ace in the hole, which is new from last year, is 2. So what from the outside, what do you think sounds scariest about that? From the outside looking in, 2
I think it's the random function of it. So much of that is relying on the 6. And I think that's the thing. If you rolled for your Katyushas with your multiple launchers and your howitzers, if you roll a lot of 6s, that's devastating. That's someone's game over. If you don't, then you've got a third of your armies doing nothing. So you're playing the odds, is basically what you're doing. You're hoping that if you roll enough dice, you're going to wipe an opponent off the board.
From my experience, from how I've been practicing, so as I say, this list has been, although I've not submitted it yet, by the time the listeners hear this, it will be submitted, is that the Katyushas, at least from how I use them, they don't need to hit. They're not there to hit. They're inexperienced, they're stupid cheap, they're only there and to punish people who clump their armies up. Personally, I don't need them to hit to win me the game. So last year, I didn't have them. This year, I don't need them, but I've got them.
So then, this is my final question for you. Really, is that if the Katyushas and the howitzers are only there to be psychological, then surely the way you're playing this tournament could be characterized as you're hoping to basically punish your opponent's mistakes rather than to necessarily outplay them yourself.
Potentially, but isn't a game of bolt action, as you say yourself, about making mistakes?
I'm deliberately playing devil's advocate by asking you that. I'm just saying that the easiest criticism to level at your list is that it's a list that just uses the power of having a massive dice bag. How many dice is it this year?
I forgot the 5 dog mines, so 23.
23.
Oh.
Yeah,
Exactly. That you're playing the dice game to hope that you can.
Okay,
just
so
roll well enough.
So to win games, I think we're all in agree. You need you need infantry, right? Infantry are what wins you games. And in terms of my actual infantry, I have 2 7-man regular squads and 2 12-man inexperienced squads who are going to fall apart under the lightest bit of fire. So for me to win, or at least to manage to get them into the right objectives, I need to keep my opponent distracted and looking the other way. So the Katyushas for me I use, and the way I've been playing with games has been quite successful, is to, if you force the opponent to spread out, suddenly I can go, here's my infantry, it's not great, but I can concentrate it and I can pick off opponents one by one. And I find for bolt action, you don't win games by annihilating people. You win games by sitting on objectives. You win games by taking key points. You win games by being on the good cover, having the hard ground at the right time.
That's the perfect moment to now ask Pete, with your army of veteran Japanese fanatics, how will you be playing?
Well, as I'm Japanese, I'm just filthy just for being Japanese. Now, so last year at the GT I came second, and a lot of people mistakenly called my list out for having bamboo spear fighters in, and I actually have the opinion that they are garbage. One-dimensional, utter garbage that gets dealt with fairly simply by a player that can look at what's going on. Sure, a horde of them is a little annoying, but you're killing them on 3s most of the time, so who cares? So I'm between 2 lists at the moment. One's got more tanks in it, and one's a tweak of what I did last year. But just for the tweak, you've got a second LT with a SMG, only regular. 7-man Grenadier squad, regular with 3 light mortars. 8-man IJA Engineer squad, veteran and a flamethrower, because they are wonderful things given to us in the New Guinea book. A 8-man Taishin Shudan paratrooper squad, that's basically a veteran squad with 3 SMGs. 2 5-man militia squads, just to hold objectives. Sniper team, because Jap snipers are great and more people should have them. Medium mortar with a spotter, never go out anywhere without any mortars, you may have noticed 4 in this list. Flamethrower team, 3 suicide anti-tank guys. Now, some people don't like them, but I love them, mainly because I use them a lot. The people
Board denial.
Yeah. Most of the time, they don't kill anything. Up against most of the people in our group, they don't kill a lot at all unless a mistake is made. But they are fantastic at board denial for tanks.
I think they have sorry, just to interject, they have a similar role, obviously a lot cheaper role, but a similar role to what my howitzers do, in that just by being there makes your opponent think. And
yeah,
they don't have to kill
they're fantastic
anything to win.
So
they're fantastic when you catch a tiger out and oops, there's a +8 in your face.
Yeah.
But,
so how many dice are we talking?
The rest of the list is a light howitzer, the 75mm mountain gun.
Nice.
The Kaishin Hoto Chiha, that's the Chiha with a medium AT gun on it. That's fantastic. I think that's hands down the best tank available to the Japanese, even through the captured Stuarts, which are just, I don't like them.
So
and then
let's go into that.
And then hold on, and then I got transports. I got 2 light trucks and a little jeep that will transport my infantry around.
Yeah, go on, Toph.
So I think that's an interesting point, because one of the things you always hear is, oh, those multi-machine gun Stuarts, the cheese, meh, meh, meh. And also actually bamboo spear fighters, the cheese. So you've just gone and immediately said, screw those, they're both shit. So from you as a person who you play the game well, you know what you're talking about. Why would you take the Chiha or whatever one you said over those Stuarts? What's the balance? What's the difference?
So for me, the Stuart, I think it's 10 points more with all the guns on it, about 165. But it doesn't really help the Japanese a lot. You've got a bunch of MMGs, sure, you can shred infantry, but Japanese infantry will shred other infantry. You've just got to be careful with them. You don't have to charge all the time. You've just got to realize that you've got fanatic across the entire army. You can't be dug out of position. You can't be assaulted really easily, because 9 out of 10 times you win that assault. So taking the Stuart, it accentuates your strength already. What I see the Kaishin Hoto doing, the the medium AT gun is actually helping you in an area that you haven't really got a lot of, which is your long range anti-tank.
Yeah, because if in doubt, every army has the same counter to an MMD Stuart, which is you go down, and immediately you're laughing. Whereas it's much harder for a vehicle to get out the way of that medium AT gun.
I do think going down as a tactic is underrated. People do not go down at the right time, from what I personally see. That -2 is huge. If you go down behind a fence, suddenly it's -3. You're hitting on 6s before you've done anything else. So when people bemoan, oh, he's got 20 billion machine gun shots, oh, he's got 1 billion light machine gun shots, you know what? If you're hitting on 7s, it does not matter how many shots they have. They're going to get maybe 1, maybe 2. And I think that things like my Shirker squad and Pete's militia squad, yes, they're inexperienced, yes, they're 35 points, yes, they'll die to a breeze, but you know what? If they're down behind a wall, you have to come get them.
So a couple of questions for Pete then. The first is, how many dice have you got?
17, which is quite a lot for a Japanese list. Well, a few Japanese lists, but it's about on par with what you get normally, and it's bloated a little because of the anti-tank teams.
Which gives you what proportion of veteran, roughly? How much of your army's veteran?
Most of the infantry. Well, I say most of it. So the engineer squad and the paratrooper squad, so that's 16 guys, are all veteran. The other 17 are a smattering of regular, inexperienced. All of my teams are either inexperienced or regular. So there's not a lot of actual veteran dudes in there, apart from the 2 blobs. But those 2 blobs perform.
So, 2 more questions for you. The first is, so you play Topher in the first round, a possibility. How do you feel about that?
Fine. You're going to get Katusha, deal with it. You can mitigate the heavy howitzers a bit if direct, make sure you move. If he goes direct, go down. Don't just get hit by the things. If you're playing objectives, then the majority of Toph's infantry is either regular or inexperienced. So just go for its guts. You can get away with leaving the inexperienced alone for a while, but you've got to take out those regular squads, because I believe they're full of SMGs, and that's just a nightmare.
So the final question for you would be, actually, is what do you think is the biggest threat to your army? Like, what don't you want to face?
With the army I've just mentioned, because I'm tottering up between 2 things, but it's probably something I faced at the the Cambridge Too Far last year, which was a bunch of MMD Stuarts, because it turns my game from having fun to going down every turn and just staying alive.
Yeah. So we'll come to Dan now, but just to summarise, basically, Toph's list is the unstoppable force. If he rolls more than 3 or 4 6s, he'll wipe your army from the board.
I know you.
Pete's force is the immovable object. So basically, it'll just go down, and you can't shift it because it's fanatic veteran infantry. So then, Dan, what's yours?
Sorry, just to jump in before Dan starts. Toph probably wants to comment that why I think spear fighters are crap as well.
Oh yeah,
That's
sorry,
also
you
a
did
good
want to
point,
say.
yeah.
Yeah, so spear fighters for me are militia without guns. And what's the point in that? If you're in an experienced infantry, militia do everything that spear fighters do and can shoot. Why would you ever take the spear fighters when you've got militia?
Amen to that.
You want to save some points.
What do you want to save points for? That's the thing. I mean, if you say you can save points you can save points in other areas of the list. You want more dice? Well, that's what suicide AT guys are for. 14 points for an inexperienced dude is bargain.
Yeah, it's too cheap. Yeah.
Before we switch to Dan, I know Dan's probably chomping at the bit now. I'm just going to defend myself. I know you love pointing at my list as filth, and I'll admit it is filth. However, those 2 Katyushas are inexperienced trucks, and they're fucking huge. They cannot hide for crap. So if they're still alive by turn 3, I'm not sorry.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying that your list is filth on account of the things that are in it. I'm saying your list is filth on account of the potential for just disproportionately devastating damage in a single turn. I think that's what makes your list filthy. The interesting thing for people who are listening to this is, Toph, do you have any flamethrowers?
In that list specifically, no.
No, Pete, you have 1, don't you?
2.
2, which is still a lot less. People seem to say that you can be very reliant on flamethrowers, and actually we've, as a group, found that that's not necessarily true.
They're a fantastic psychological weapon. Look, here's a flamethrower. Shoot at this for a turn, please.
The other thing with the flamethrower is the rise of the flamethrower is matched to the rise of the veteran Japanese infantry, which is, if there's a nasty squad of vets in cover, you know, commandos, Gurkhas, Japanese infantry, whatever, if Finnish stuff, if they're in cover and they're going down, they are difficult to get rid of. So the flamethrower is there to go, you know what? I don't care how tough you are. I'm gonna get rid. Those D3+1 pins, the leadership chest, that's failable. That's a chink in the armor. So I think people take them as like an insurance policy. I mean, that's definitely why I take them. I build lists and I go, you know what? I think, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with that? How am I going to deal with this? And when I think of the list Pete builds, how do you defeat Japanese infantry? I can't rely on rolling sixes. And even if I do, it just goes down. So
nice segue there onto Finns, which I think is what Dan's taking. Hit us with your list, Dan.
Yeah, that's right. So I took Americans to the last GT. It was a bit of a mishmash of stuff because it was my first GT. I'd only been playing bolt action for about just under a year, maybe at that point, and it was basically the starter box set with a couple of extra little bits here and there, and it wasn't a brilliant list, but I think I still managed to finish 4th or 5th overall. But yeah, this year tuned it up a tiny bit. So we've gone Finns. Now, I wanted to do a Finnish infantry horde because obviously the Finns have got the best. The infantry is their best quality. You know, the tanks are mostly unreliable. So if you get a pin, you're going to take another one with it. The only difference between that and the Shirker rule is if I take, say, 5 pins from a howitzer, I don't take 10 for being unreliable. I take 6. It's just +1 onto it. So I tried to mitigate the tanks, get rid of as many of them as I can, because I did have a Poster Junior in there or a OT-34, but they were a bit unreliable, as the name suggests. So what we've got now is we've got a regular platoon second lieutenant on his own, no friends, no upgrades, just an SMG, come as you are, bog standard. Then I've got 6 infantry squads. So the Defence of Karelia is the theatre selector I've gone for, and it is the only one that allows me to take the exact number of infantry squads that I wanted to take. So I've got 2 continuation war squads that are late war, 1 6-man, 1 7-man, both with 2 Panzerfausts, 3 Sissy Recon squads. All of them are 7 men, except for one that's 8 men. Now, these are the infantry that are probably point for point one of the best infantry in the game. They are veterans. They can move and then go into ambush. And when they fire from ambush, they get a +1 to hit. So suddenly, if you've got a squad of veteran SMG guys that are getting quite close to your lines, move, set up an ambush, and then when they disembark to try and gun you down, you're suddenly hitting them on 2s.
So what you're saying is they're Americans that require no skill.
No, because you need to be able to move into the right positions to get there. Americans just run around like madmen because they're they're a bit cheaper than Finns, and they just ignore the one to move, so they're not quite as good as the Finnish infantry.
I'm just messing with you. It was just a cheap shot because it was funny.
I don't think that's about the Finns being easy. I just think the Americans are easy mode.
No, I know. It was said for lols, not to make an actual point. So what's your anti-tank? You've got Panzerfausts on your squads. Have you got any AT other than that?
Yeah, so in my infantry support slots... Oh, sorry, and one last infantry squad is the Calcapatio Long Distance Recon Squad. These are the 5-men squads that are fanatic, veteran, tough fighter medics, and they can choose a board edge. So
what are those?
The Calcapatio are brilliant. They've basically got every rule under the sun, and they're about 26 points a model, 27 points a model, something stupid.
That's disgusting.
Worth it.
Yeah, but so for their special rule, you declare a board edge you want to outflank on the left or the right as usual, and then from turn 2 onwards, they can come on any position along that right or left board edge, or the opponent's board edge. So when you're saying things like Topher's got his 2 Katushkas and 2 heavy howitzers set up on his back line, turn 2, these guys are coming in and they're gunning 1 down a turn. Simple
Nice.
as that.
So you say they're 27 points a man.
I think it's something like that, yeah.
So
It's about
what's the
27
restriction on them?
21.
Is it one per army? Is it?
In this theatre selector, it is one per army, yeah.
Yeah. Are there selectors where you could take more of those?
I think as a generic platoon, you can take them as just infantry squads, but they are 115 points for 5 men. So
Is it max 5?
no, I think you can take them up to 8 or 9, something like that. But
Okay.
that would be about it would be about a quarter of your army for one squad. So that's ridiculous.
So what vehicles have you got?
So just going down a little bit more to the infantry support. Bog standard 1 flamethrower, regular. Bog standard 1 sniper, regular. The sniper, again, he can move an ambush, just like the recon squads can. Then I've got a light anti-tank gun, which for the Finns, you can upgrade to an M42 Bofors, and that basically means it's a medium anti-tank gun at short range. So anything up to 24 inches, it's getting a +5, I think it is. And that's regular as well with a gun shield. Now, I've got 1 transport, which is the Comsolets or Comsomlets, whatever it is. It's 35 points, which is not bad. It's open topped, which is a shame, but it's armor 7+. So anything that's going to be light rifle fire, unlike trucks, you're going to be able to get the guys there alive pretty much in this thing. And it has an LMG on it, so it can pump a little bit of fire out on the way.
What, for 35 points?
For 35 points. It's only a
That's
6-man transport. It's only 6 men, but it's basically the only option that Finns have apart from just a generic truck, which is only a little bit cheaper and doesn't have the armor 7 or the machine gun on it. So
how many dice are you?
I'm 14 in total. 13 in total. Sorry.
So really, the main question to ask you then is: imagine that you're playing Toph and then Pete. How do you feel about that? What is it about their lists that scare you? How would you answer them?
Yeah. Well, one last thing I've got a BA-10 in there, which is just the Recce light anti-tank gun armoured car, and then the Vickers 6-ton tankette, which is the 70-point double machine gun. Those are the Vickers is the only, well, pretty much the only non-unreliable one that the Finns have access to. So that's why I've ditched all the other tanks in favour of that one. So in terms of against Pete, Sissy recon squads are an absolute godsend. Being able to move up an ambush, and then every time he banzais towards me, I get a free turn of shooting at him with a +1 to hit. It is absolutely fantastic. And against Toph, the recon squads can do the same thing pretty much against his Katyushas. And then against his howitzers, I can try and mitigate them as much as I can by trying to come on from the back with the Calcapatio squad, trying to get a lot of MMG and LMG shots from the BA-10 or the Vickers, trying to pin them down, get a couple of the members reduced, because they're only regulars. Once you put 1 or 2 pins on them, if you can get a half check on them, they're pretty much going to be fleeing. So that's really good. And if they've got a couple of pins on them, Toph can't pass order checks when he's got a pin on him. So anyone that's going to the GT, anyone that's going to the GT, put a pin on every single one of Toph's units and you win the game. But one of the strengths for the Finns as well, if I can move forward and ambush with half of my army, if his Katyushkas and his howitzers do start firing, they just go down. Because once they're targeted, instead of declaring a fire order from an ambush, you can also declare a down order. They go down behind heavy cover. Suddenly it's still 6s for the Katyushas, but suddenly it's 7s for the howitzers. And it's half hits if he does manage to get that lucky hit. And one of the most important things for the Finns is when they're halved from their starting number at any point during the game. So all of the 7-man or the 8-man squads, once they get down to 4 men, they all go up a level. So all the continuation war squads, they go up to veteran. Well, all the Sissy recon squads, they go up to super vet, and suddenly they're leadership 11. So they are not going to be leaving the game anytime soon. You know, you could put 4 or 5 pins on them, and there's still a very good chance they're going to be stood there.
So last question before Toph has free reign again is, what are you afraid of? What wouldn't you want to face?
A bit like Pete, I've played the Stuart spam at Cambridge this year. We both beat our opponents. We both played 2 different Stuart spams. We both beat them both times. because we were able to isolate a Stuart per turn, kill it, move on to the next one, and just go down with anything that got shot by the other Stuart or the other 2 Stuarts in each list. I'm not afraid of that list because my whole army can either go down or it can move and then go down, and it's still got quite good damage output. It's going to be a boring game if I play that. Apart from that, I don't know. If I was to face 100 bamboo spear fighters, that would be a pain in the arse, and that would probably get me because I don't have quite the damage output that Toph has with his Katyushas. But apart from that, I'm not massively worried if I come up against anything, really.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I also played a Stuart spam list last year and lost, just for balance.
Yeah, Dan mentions that we both had the same game. His game, he was isolating Stuarts and killing them. My game, I was just going down, and my opponent had most of his army left, but I was the one still stood on 3 objectives.
I just think from my part, looking at Dan's list, is you look at the face of it and it doesn't look particularly scary. There's nothing out there which is really, oh my god, that's going to annihilate units on a turn. But what it does.
Well, when you look at it, it's a theatre selector and it's a solo platoon. So like yours is a theatre selector, but it's Stalingrad, which is already a bit cheesy, and it's double platoon, so that's definitely cheesy. Mine is single platoon for Finns, who are notoriously quite low on options to begin with. And if you take a theatre selector, that just minimises them a little bit more.
But I don't think you can complain that your list is restricted when Finns have access to most of the stuff in their fairly basic. Like Toph's, yeah, he might but he's getting all of his benefit out of the selector. The units in Toph's list are pretty rubbish, but
yeah,
they're good because they're grouped. Yours are the exact opposite of that. That actually they're amazing on their own, but it means that you don't get the benefits of doubling or tripling up.
Well, that's the thing. Is the Finns have really powerful infantry. Their infantry, the not quite as good squads can take Panzerfaust, and the good squads can move an ambush with a +1 to hit. That is so good, it's unreal. And the only thing I had to compromise on is I had to take this theatre selector so I could get the extra Calcapatio squad in, because most normal platoons will only let you take 5 infantry, whereas this one lets you take 6. That is the only compromise I had to make.
Yeah, it's you get your theatre selector, but you take the same approach that I've taken for quite a while, which is just take the one platoon, make the list look on paper as if it's not really going to do, it's just the standard list, and then because you've played with it so much and you know what each individual bit does, suddenly, your opponent's looking at you going, how the hell have you killed all of this with that list?
Yeah.
So, go on.
So just to round it all off, I think Dan's list, if I was to pick which list was the best out of all of us, or at least the one which I think has the most potential to go far in a 5-game GT, is I think Dan's list is actually quite a nice piece of artwork. It's quite in the way it works, in that it's very finesse. It doesn't rely on big hitters. It doesn't rely on getting that cheeky 6 early. It just relies on good, solid understanding of the rules. And if you just know how to play with that list, so for an example, at least from my experience, not many people know that if you're in ambush, you can go down. The boxing rulebook, it's not particularly well written. It's hidden right at the bottom there. But it does say, if you're in ambush, you can go down.
It is hidden at the bottom of the ambush rule, not in the down rule. It's one of the ones that.
So knowing when you can go down and knowing how to set up your lines of fire, how to set up your targets, when to move, when not to move, when to make the push, that all orchestrates itself into a beautiful synergy of you getting annihilated turn 2 and not understanding quite why. I mean, when I've been practiced against Dan, I've been utterly annihilated, utterly destroyed to bits, and yet you'd look at the list and go, well, Dan's list is alright and my list is a pile of filth, but fundamentally Bolt Action's a brilliant game, at least to me, because I feel like it's far more about how you play a list than the list itself.
I was going to say.
Yeah. The list will top you up the last 10%.
So, me and Dan played a game quite recently, and you look at our lists up against each other, and honestly looking at it, you probably side with the Finns on the move and ambush, because it gives you that advantage. But it was, for a good 3-4 turns of that, it was just basic. It was playing chess with every dice, because you got to be so careful with every move. I knew that I couldn't just jump on him and start eating his infantry with a charge, because he was sat there waiting on ambush. If he got his dice out, he was going, I've got to sit on ambush to make sure I don't get that charge. So we were playing a very cagey game. and it makes it quite a hard game. If I come up against Dan at a GT, it's more or less, here we go, don't lose.
Yeah, I think for me outside the list, the list scariest initially, because this is the first time I'm hearing them, is actually Pete's is the one I wouldn't want to play. That's probably because I'd be taking Soviets to any tournament I went to. But actually thinking about it over you lot talking, the list I wouldn't want to face is Dan's, not because it's necessarily its finesse, it's because Dan's list will work on any table, and I think actually. The other two of you, the terrain could screw you over a little bit. Either Pete, if there's not enough of it, and Topher if there's too much of it. Whereas I think the ability of the Finns to move ambush should mean that it doesn't matter. You'll be fine.
Fingers crossed.
So another thing is, I always say that going and just buying a list that is filth won't necessarily win you the game, because as I say, with things like Katyushas, it's very point and click, but you need to know where. You need to know when's best to fire the rockets, when's best to fire the smoke, how to keep them how to keep them safe, how to keep them alive, and a lot of practice is going into this. I've been practicing every week with this list for about 4 weeks, and we've got another 2 weeks before the GT starts. So by the time I'm actually playing on the table with this list, just me knowing how to run it will be much more of a contribution to my victory if I was as lucky enough to get it than me rolling a couple of sixes. The problem is if I rolled a couple of sixes and then win, the opponent will forever go, it was those sixes, not necessarily my practice with the list and having my rear end handed to me multiple times in the garage every week will be completely disregarded.
Do you think that's fine though? Like, if that is what happens, let's imagine in your final game and you absolutely slaughter your opponent because you roll a bunch of sixes and they get really salty about it, will you feel worse?
Yeah.
Even if you've won?
Yeah, I would, because fundamentally, I think we can all agree here, if you go to a tournament, you want to win because you're the best player, not because you rolled a load of sixes and you did well. And also, I want to have fun games. I would rather lose a tournament but have 5 fantastic games than to cream 5 people, make them all hate me, get people spitting at me as I walk away, but walking away with the trophy. That's not fun. That's not what I want. I want to come up against people who are as dedicated as me and have a test of wills, and I'll hopefully like to come out on top.
And also, I've had that sort of game before as well. At Cambridge this year, the first player I played was quite a new player, I think, and he brought some Australians, and he didn't know what multiple launchers did, and he had 4 squads bubbled around each other behind a building with one door frame in it, and I could see one squad through the door frame, and because he didn't really know what those multiple launchers did, I got 2 sixes from 4 shots on that very first turn, and I actually killed all 4 units because he'd put them too close to each other. So not only could I hit all 4 units with one set of shots, but I could actually hit 3 units with every template I put down because they were that close. So when you get onto the tables, you need to assess what's put in front of you. You need to evaluate what the enemy can do, what each of those units can do. And because bolt action's quite a uniform game, my infantry does pretty much the same as your infantry, what things are going to do. So all you've got to do is assess what's there. If you're not sure, ask about what something does, and then just react to that better than they react to what you're doing. And then that's how you win games most often, is if they do something, how can I react to that?
So there we go. I think we've
giving away the trade secrets there, look.
Well, hopefully by the time this goes out and I've actually got around to editing it and making you all look bad, it'll be too far gone for everyone to know our trade secrets. But you know what? Let people know, because I would much prefer people to play on our level. I'd like to play people who are competitively minded and do give me a good thrashing. Because if I get thrashed, that means I can learn and I can come back stronger, and it can that's just the beauty of it. That's the way it goes forward. But
A final question with a yes or no answer for each of you is: do you think you will see your list from last year this year?
No.
Aspects of it. I think you might see the 4 snipers I had last year. Potentially. What I think we'll see is a lot of Western Desert. Simply because it's the new big thing. And not only is it the new big thing, but it's quite famous for a lot of people pointing out imbalanced stuff with it. My own personal opinion is it's not that bad, but each their own. So I think people will go, oh well, the internet says this is good. So I'm going to take lots of that. So I'm expecting lots of Schutzen. I'm expecting British engineers. I'm expecting definitely expecting British Indians. I'm expecting a lot of mechanised infantry. I'm expecting a lot of
LRDG trucks.
Yeah, because it's the new hotness. Old Recce's come back in for LRDG. So we'll that's what I'm expecting. And I've kind of built my list. Five dog mines is over the top. It's far more anti-tank you need. But you know what? If they're bringing 10 trucks, it's plenty.
Will we see any Italians?
Well, they've got new rules, haven't they? So they look quite tasty, actually. Whether they'll beat us on the top tables, we don't know, but we'll see.
I'm going to slightly revise what I don't want to come up again, because I've just remembered that stupid Western Desert book.
Sorry, triggered.
A Stuart list spam of Indians where they get 200 points of free stuff. 100 points, I don't mind joking now.
FAQ itself properly. It's obviously an oversight. I mean, no way should they get both the old British rules and their new nation rules, but Warlord aren't willing to FAQ it, so it is what it is, and you can't blame people for taking it. That's the way I see it. So good luck.
Bad luck to them.
That one.
This is the penultimate segment, which is Ranting Angry Gamers. This is the segment where we all get on the pedestal and just express our feelings and get really angry and just let loose at what annoys us, and everyone else can tear our opinions apart and tell us how wrong we are, and then we'll all feel better for it at the end. And Ranting Angry Gamers, I'm going to shorten to RAG, because it's nice and easy to say. So this week, who's on the RAG? Well, it's me. I have some opinions that I need to share, and everyone to
just some
judge
opinions.
Me. I have a lot of opinions. This is why I've started a podcast, Pete. Any listener who's still with us at this point, and they decide to subscribe, which please do, it'd be great. You can look forward to many opinions. Though to be fair, I think most of them. You know what really grinds my gears? So I'm a frequent commenter on the Bolt Action Facebook page. I think it's a great resource. I think if you're new to the game or you just want to share your ideas, share your pictures, ask rules quiz, it's a brilliant resource. However, I do pick a problem with some of the comments. So this is a very specific scenario that I see quite a lot, and frankly, it pisses me off. And it's when people ask, "How does this rule work?" So they'll ask something along the lines of, "How do spotters work?" Or "How does recce work?" Or "How do tank riders work?" Something quite not normal, let's say. It might not come up every game. It's a little bit off centre, and normally these sort of rules are a little bit grainy. Warlord hasn't really thought about it themselves. Things like, can spotters hold objectives? Things like tank riders, why don't they go down from Katyushas? Why don't you roll them separately? Those kind of issues. So someone will say, as the example, I'm going to go with spotters here. Can spotters score objectives? And you'll have a variety of answers, because some people will answer without even reading the book and not knowing what they're on about. And they're level tier 1 of annoying. Number 2 is the people who will say, "I don't know, but I think it should be like this," which, thanks for helping, but you're not helping either. You're tier 2. Tier 3 is the people who will then say, "I know what the book says, but the book is stupid and it's wrong, and let me tell you over a 1,000-page essay as to why it's wrong." So, and this tier 3 fucking pisses me off, because you know what? The original person just asked, how does the rule work? The only answer you should give is how the rule works. Beyond that is all opinion. So, for spotters, can spotters hold objectives? As per the rulebook, yes they can. They are infantry, they're a single model, they can hold an objective. Now, whether you think they should or not is a completely different question. Personally, they probably shouldn't be able to hold objectives, but until Warlord changed the rules, they do, and that is what it is. So, in these scenarios, people would then say, "No, they don't have objectives, you're a bad person, shut the hell up, that's not historical, have you even fired a machine gun, what the hell are you, you moron?" You know what? It's not required. What is required is the poster is told the answer, and then if you have an opinion, then just say, "Here's how the rule works. Personally, though, in our group, we play it this way because we're not douchebags." And that is the correct answer, and that is why people need to get over themselves and stop forcing their opinions on others and just answer the question that was actually freaking asked. Any points?
Wow, who got on yours?
I feel so much better after that.
That must have been building up all year, or however long.
I mean, anyone who's friends with me on Facebook will wake up in the morning and find a load of notifications from me commenting on Facebook posts of calling people out for giving bad rules advice. And
otherwise known as my morning entertainment. Yes.
I mean, I have kids. They're very young. I'm up in the night feeding them. So obviously, before I go back to bed, I struggle to get back to bed. So you know what? I'm going to go and have an argument with a bunch of Americans online. It's very therapeutic. But you know what? Would they just stop being wrong? Would they just stop advising shit you don't have a clue about? Stop giving bad advice.
Not just Americans. Let's not isolate an audience. But it's people that are up that late or that early.
Sorry. So another thing which just really.
Really grinds those gears.
No, I've lost it. I'm too far gone now. Sorry, Sheffield was about to interject.
No, I was just going to say it's really frustrating. I agree with you. I like the tiered system. I think that it's the tier 3s that really get to me. It's the people that their opinion of an interpretive rule is law in their eyes, and their complete inability to understand what a house rule is or why it might be necessary. And I mean, because we are all preparing for the GT at the moment, it doesn't matter whether or not we'd want to have an interpretation of a house rule, because it's irrelevant to competition play. If it's a rule, it's a rule, and we're all agreed about that. No one's going to try and go, oh, but can we play it this way just for ourselves, because it would be stupid. But it's if I felt like something was different, or I think this is one of the first things that came up in the first edition of the rulebook, actually, was because I posted something about, I think it was artillery hitting buildings, and I was absolutely livid about the way one artillery shell can hit multiple units on multiple floors of a building, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember being completely annoyed about it and just being really salty and throwing my rattle out of the pram at the gaming table. I remember being really annoyed about it and posting it on. I posted it as a question in the Facebook group. We're talking like 2 years ago now, and someone said, "Oh no, this is how the rule works," and I was like, "Oh good, I was just wrong then," and it was really helpful. What wasn't helpful was 100 other people going, "But that's stupid." Which is exactly what you're saying. If you want to know how a rule works, that's a different question than whether it should work like that. They're different questions. Does it work like that? Should it work like that? Different groups.
So what a good example, because you said the word house, which I think is a very good word to use, because no war game, as far as I'm aware, has ever had good building rules. It just doesn't exist. They're really difficult because they're either too good, in which case they're bunkers, or they're too bad, in which case they're death traps. In bolt action, they tend to be death traps. And when you say, and especially since the FAQ, where how do multiple launchers work, say, when firing at a building, and someone will say, oh, well, you measure 6 inches from the building. Oh, wow, that's a stupid rule. It's so overpowered. Oh, bullshit, man. They're so shit. Blah, blah, blah. They shouldn't be that in the game. They're too long range. Blah, blah. You know what? I actually agree. I do think the multiple launcher rules are bullshit. But that's not the point. The point is here's how the rule works. Form your own opinion once the rules have been said. That's how the rule works. So the correct answer, I am back on my pedestal now, is it's a bit silly, but, and then you explain the rule, and that's it. I do not appreciate people getting fed, frankly, lies and bullshit about what the rules are, because people have their own opinion on them. You're allowed to have an opinion. I have an opinion. I love my opinion. Brilliant. I like to flash it to my wife every evening. It's great. But I'm not interested in yours. Now, if the question was, do people like this rule? You know what? Knock yourself out. That is the perfect time. But that is never the question. Never the question.
This is what people didn't understand with my question about Africa Corps Kradschützen the other day, wasn't it? I said, how many people can ride on one bicycle?
And you posted that just to wind them up.
Yeah, I did. I know full well that what the answer was, but I asked the question: how many soldiers, how many Africa Corps troops can ride on a single motorcycle? Because you're paying the points for the ability for them to ride a motorcycle, not for the motorcycle itself. So you could buy a squad of 10 and purchase them one motorcycle, and that is entirely legitimate from a rules perspective. Of course, it's stupid, and you shouldn't do that, and it's historically inaccurate. But should and can are completely different questions, and this is what people just didn't seem to be able to understand in the comments. The correct answer to my question is yes, you can, but why would you? It's a terrible idea. It gives you no advantage in terms of the rules. But people were getting on their horse and saying, oh no, you shouldn't do this, the rules don't let you do this. Yes, they do. It's common sense that means you shouldn't do it. And people just don't seem able to draw that distinction, and it just drives me mad. On this occasion, I did it entirely because I knew I'd get a reaction out of it, and it was very funny. But normally it's very annoying, particularly if it's a new person who doesn't know the rules very well and is genuinely asking for assistance. Whereas
Sorry, just to interject. So the problem, the reason this is an issue to me, and the reason why it's not, I feel it's a strong enough issue to actually bring up and discuss in this way, is because these discussions, these arguments, these ranting posts dilute the actual understanding of the rules themselves to the point where you can go to an event and play with someone, and you're following two different rule sets because one of you is following the rules out of the book, and the other one's following the rules that their mate told them, which they decide to change a bit because they don't like that rule. Which means you go to a tournament and suddenly you have a discussion, the rulebook comes out, the TO comes over. That's how you set up feel bads. That's how you set up those games where, oh, that's not how I thought to play. That's where you get the time where that douchebag win at all cost player was because the rules weren't fundamentally understood in the first place, rightly or wrongly, whether you like them or not. I personally have a lot of rules I do not agree with, but you know what? That's the way it's played. So while you're in your house rule, yeah, change what you want. Even the TO, if you're running a tournament, you change what you want. You say that rule's stupid, so we're going to play it this way. But be upfront and say the rule is this. However, we're going to play that. And I feel forcing your own large bias of history.
That should only be the remit of whatever campaign day organizer, campaign weekend organizer, or TO. That should be their remit if you're playing it.
If I was a moderator in that Facebook group, I would ban anyone who says, "Have you fired a machine gun? Have you driven a tank?" Ban, insta ban.
Well, that's because you're not a nice person, Sheffield.
I see what he's saying though, in that it's very patronising to. You see a lot of these people who, especially where if they've been in the army or they are a veteran themselves, and they go, "Oh well, have you been in a building that's been fired up by mortars?" No, but I'm just playing a war game, and I don't think
I once
has
had
been in that way either.
I once had a big beard, therefore I'm the authority on dwarves.
I think what most people have to remember is these rules are written with the best intentions. They're trying to be as close to real life as possible, but essentially they are a game. So no, some of the rules might not be exactly how it is if you were under fire in a building, or if you were being sniped, or if some other scenario like that. But do you know what? For 28mm plastic figures, they're pretty good set of rules when all things told.
And there are other sets, for those hardcore gamers. Chain of Command will do what you need it to do. I always say bolt action is Saving Private Ryan, the dice rolling game, and that's what I love it for. I love the fact that I don't have to sit there and go, wow, which had the stopping power at 2,000 yards? Was it Car 98 or Garand M1? You know what? If you're into that, knock yourself out. I'm really happy that people find things they enjoy. It's just a frustration. I mean, we're kind of just as bad here for bringing it up personally, because we're just coming at it from the other side. But fundamentally is, if you're playing in a neutral setting without any interventions, without any TO rulings, without any house rules, is the rulebook is king fundamentally. Until someone says otherwise, the rulebook is king. I feel that we could do a bit of a.
I'm just going to translate Toph for everybody, which is I am a tier 4 god. You should listen to me and nobody else. That's basically what you're saying, isn't it?
Wow.
To be fair, okay, so next year, I'm hoping to run some tournaments. We've got a venue lined up in the new year, which is going to be great. So I'm going to run some tournaments. You know what? In my tournaments, I'm going to make changes. Tiger Fear, I'm going to house rule that because it's a stupid fucking rule. But if someone asks me,
amen.
But if someone asks me how does Tiger Fear work, I'm going to say, here's how it works. It's a bit shit, innit? It's as simple as that.
Should have never been on the Panzer IV.
Well, it is what it is, and it is there now. So until a TO or a house rule or a garage or the guy at your local club says let's play it that way before the game begins, knock yourself out. But if you have a stranger asking you how the rule works, feel better now. Are you all liberated from my tier 4 knowledge?
now you've targeted a specific subsection of the community. Do you feel better now?
I mean, I've never been to America. And Australia, and those are the people who I'm arguing with at 2 a.m. So, I might go and get stopped at the border.
Well, let's be honest. You never go to the UK anyway.
Anyway, I feel we need to be a bit more positive. So on that note, shall we get to the last segment? Yeah. And this is our final segment. So, to let you all know how poorly organised we are, we don't actually have a name for it yet. So, I'm going to give you guys the challenge as the listeners is to email me in write a comment, leave some feedback. What should we call this section? So this is basically our predicting the future section. We're going to assign ourselves some hobby tasks that we're going to try and do in the next month before we record again. But for
Mr. Blobby's Hobby Lobby.
Okay, listener, you have to do better than Mr. Hobby's Blobby. Mr. Blobby's Hobby Lobby. otherwise it's going to stick. And if you don't want to hear that every week, you better come up with a good idea. So anyway, now I'm going off. Thanks, Sheffield. Now I'm going off the beaten track. What are our hobby? What do we need to get done in the next month? What's your pledge? And if you don't get done, I'm gonna have to come up with some sort of fourth. Who wants to go first?
I don't mind.
Go on then.
Cool. So I am currently stripping and repainting 7 tanks for my fins. I needed to get more variety in my army of the people on this podcast because it was quite one-dimensional. So
you got told off for having a crap army and boring.
Well, I have 2 armies that I've collected in 6 months each, and they're both quite well-defined armies. So I'm currently going through a process of expanding those. So I think getting those 7 tanks painted, weathered, maybe even based for my fins. And I've also got a box of Fallschirmjäger starter set Germans. So the plan is to take out everything I need from that box and get it built for next month as well, so I can find out what I'm missing. So I need to buy that for hopefully Christmas, get some presents from all the family, get some Germans in, and that'll be me done.
So I'm hearing 7 vehicles and a Fallschirmjäger starter box built.
The bits that I need out of it to make my army list,
That sounds pretty doable. See, the problem is you're very restricted and careful with your buying, unlike me and Sheffield, who just blow money on useless crap because we have an addiction. I feel that you're not quite at our level yet, and you need to reduce yourself down, because frankly this is embarrassing that you're not at our level.
I'm sorry for being so conservative.
Be free with your cash. Let it fly.
Right.
You don't need to let it fly too freely, though. Well,
To hell with the mortgage. To hell with bills.
Hey, I have a mortgage.
You don't need to eat,
I'm
right?
fine. Speaking of mortgages, Sheffield, what's your hobby, dudes? I don't know why mortgages link me to you. I feel like out of all of us, you're the most mature. So there we go. Hello.
Well, that's a lie. Sorry, I'd muted my microphone in anticipation. I'm not entirely sure. I think I would like to finish building my Africa Corps. So they've been about half built. So I've got about, I think, 2,500 points of infantry and 3 vehicles. And it's in a state of about half built. I would like to have it built. I would like to have base coated it and done the base texturing and have it ready for at least practice games and things like that, even if not in a fully fighting state. I think that's quite doable.
Isn't that what you want to take to Cambridge? As like a far
yes.
off goal. Okay, good. Pete?
Well, you've struck on something there. I'm finished building the last part. Well, majority of the parts I'm going to be taking to Cambridge. Out of the list that I want to take to Cambridge, I've already got the 2. Just building all the infantry for it.
So, I actually still haven't got my Warlord GT list finished yet. As I didn't realise I was going until quite late up to it, so I'm like, get some stuff together. So I've got my Katyushas, they're built, and they've had a base coat, but there's still a long way to go to get them finished. I haven't even purchased my Strafbat squads yet, so I've got to purchase them, build them, paint them in 2 weeks. So
No pressure.
2 words. Agrax, Earthshade.
Praise be the Lord of Agrax Earthshade. For he is the god amongst us. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm more scared of eBay messing me about and not getting me my infantry quick enough, because I only need 2. However, I do foresee myself at my local gaming store on Friday morning, panic buying, and then ignoring all of my family and not sleeping that night to get them built. So
you could just buy that whole box, though, right?
I could, however, I don't want to.
And then make Sheffield buy.
Yeah, but he's done his Soviets. He hasn't won them off me.
Oh.
We'll see.
We both know how Topher's mind works. If he buys a full box, he'll have about 20 spare dudes, which is basically the beginnings of another army. And that's not something he needs.
20 extra Soviets.
I mean, see, I'm going to go with Dan here. If I had 23 Soviets, I'm going to give that to someone and go, "There's your army." Do we have any?
Well,
Do we have any new Soviet army? We'll see.
I haven't got Soviets.
You just want some free shit.
I mean, he's honest with it at least.
So going back to the point, I'm gonna. So for the next month, I want to finish my list. I need to paint 2 Katyushas. I need to paint a load of unarmed dudes for my Strafbat, and ideally I want to rebase some of my dudes because my Soviet army, to anyone who's seen it, is very snowy with very built up snow bases. But over the years of doing my Soviet army, I've improved my technique, let's say. So the ones I did at the start are the ones I did last week. So I might pick out.
You're only a tiny bit shit.
They're awful. They're dire. They're just they make you vomit. You see my army, you just vomit everywhere. And you know what? I'm sick of cleaning the floor, so I might have to rebase some of my models. Hopefully, I can get all that done in the next 2 weeks. And you know what? After that, I'm probably gonna have a break because I'm going to be working a lot in the next 14 days.
You won't have too much.
Well,
We
see.
all know what you're like.
We'll see.
You say
We'll
you have a break. 2 days later, there's another army come out from somewhere.
Well, I mean, in carrying on bolt action, I'm currently in the middle of a commission for a German army, and I've got about 12 dudes left of that to paint as well. Luckily, my client is very understanding and has let me push that project back so I can concentrate on my filth. So, if I do anything after the War GT, it should probably next episode, which hopefully should be complain how we didn't get anything done and punish each other with forfeits. I haven't worked out what the forfeits are yet, though. It sounds a little bit kinky.
Speak for yourself. I've got 12 guys done just while
chatting. Well, I've just been sitting here hosting, so screw you. Right, so this sounds like the end of our very first episode. How do you feel it went? We all right?
I'm half left, mate.
Half left. Dan?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
All good for me.
Any final rants?
No.
Are you sure? You had to pause for a minute.
I did. I was going to take a cheap shot, and I won't.
Okay, I will await that next episode then. So from me, I'm going to say thank you. If you've reached this end, this part, thank you very much. Hopefully by the time this comes up, I'm going to have a Facebook page. Should have it up on YouTube, so please like us, please follow us, please give us feedback. I know you're going to give us a lot of feedback. I know it's awful, editing's bad, editing's hard. I'm very newbie at this, so I would love some feedback.
It's hard.
Very feedback, but as I say, give us some support, let us know you're listening, and hopefully...
And just as an aside, Topher did mention that to email in some suggestions to Blobby's Hobby Lobby, a better name for it. The email will probably be supplied with the episode.
I'll post it on Facebook. It'll probably be something along the lines of juggernautboltaction@gmail.com. That sounds what it'll end up being. There. Also, if you just have any questions, I'd like to have an FAQ segment where you just send us abuse, and we just answer it on air. That sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Or if there's bits they want to send in for us to answer, for where we get rules queries and stuff, and people go on the Facebook book and can't on the Facebook page and can't find proper answers, let us know. We'll sort it out for you.
If you want to send us a rules query, send it to us, and we will have an argument live on air for you. And
why are MMGs so good?
Okay, I'm ending this now. Thank you for listening, guys.